I want to hear from you after writing the book and all that. What did you determine about how we can live based on the knowledge of our origin? So whether that be food or anything, just want to know how it's changed you. But let's start going down this journey. And your book is done in an interesting way. It's kind of chronological, but not, right. Like you have different sections, and it starts obviously with, to some degree, the Big Bang. So I want to start there because, again, why I do this show is because everybody listening has heard of the Big Bang. And I think we kind of know there was matter and some kind of explosion, and it all shot out, and the universe is expanding, and that's where it all came from. But there's nuances there that you talk about. So here's one of the first I wanted to ask. There was a guy, and I can't pronounce his name. What's his name? Lemaitre?
Lemaitre. Georges Lemaitre.
Lemaitre. Okay. So he essentially is the one who discovered the Big Bang. And you could tell us about that, but also he brought it to somebody we've all heard of, which is Einstein. And what I don't think I realized is initially Einstein refuted the theory and hated it. So tell us a little bit about how that went and how eventually Einstein got on board and it became sort of mainstream.
Yeah, it's a great story because it was a Catholic priest of all people who showed Einstein that he was wrong. Lemaitre was a brilliant physicist who came of age and studied very soon after Einstein came up with this big theory of general relativity. And Lemaitre heard in the 1920s of some observations that suggested that galaxies further away from Earth were accelerating away from us faster than galaxies closer to us. And that suggested to him that the universe was expanding. So he looked into Einstein's theories and Einstein's equations, and he found just that possibility. So he tracked Einstein down because he wrote a paper that everybody ignored. And he told Einstein about it. And Einstein said to him, well, you know what? Your physics is great, but your physical intuition is atrocious. There's no way that that's possible, that the universe is expanding. For Einstein, it was just too weird to be true. But Lemaitre dug deeper into Einstein's equations, and he realized if the universe is expanding now, a little bit earlier in time it was smaller, a little bit earlier in time it was smaller, and so on. And so by implication, if you go back far enough in time, the entire universe and every single particle and piece and bit of it was contained in a tiny, teeny bit of time and space. Einstein hated that too, right? In part, there was even a sense in which Lemaitre was a priest, and he was, and he was telling Einstein that there was an origin to the universe. It even reeked of a religiosity to Einstein. But he had to accept the evidence. Later, and not too long afterwards, there was much more observational evidence that suggested exactly that. And so Einstein came around. Lemaitre convinced him.
Yeah. And do we know before Einstein was convinced where he thought it all came from? Because it's funny, as you mentioned, the religious nature of an origin story, but he must have thought it came from somewhere. He must have had some origin story in his mind.
I don't think that was approachable by science. I think people assumed perhaps it existed forever, perhaps it was static, unchanging, but there was no scientific way to address that. It was just the assumption, because of the idea that the universe, expanded. If the universe is expanding, what's it expanding into? We still can't answer that question, right?
Right.
So it doesn't seem like the first explanation, the first theory that you would come up with.
Yeah. Well, what's it expanding into? That's just a mind-bending question. So, and we don't know the answer.